Alright, so today we're going to do some examples of creating a graph for a hyperbola when we're given its equation. Here we have the general forms, and notice in this video we do use the more general formula where we have h and k, which is the center of the hyperbola. So in the last video we just had the center be the origin, so we didn't really have to include this part. But for most of your examples in class and stuff, you're probably going to have ones where you will have a different center. So now we're just going to go through some examples, and you'll get the hang of it. It's the same process that we were doing when it was at the origin. So first, we have this equation, x minus 2 squared over 4 minus y minus 2 squared over 5. Immediately I noticed that the x comes first. So that means that we're going to be going from left to right. We're going to be opening both those ways. And then I also noticed that, let's get our center point, h and k. So we know it's x minus h and then y minus k. So that tells us the center for this point, for this graph, is 2, 2. So I would graph that first, 2, 2. And that point won't actually be on the graph, but it is used for reference. And then next we know that, well, because x squared is first, let's look for our vertices. It's going to be h, which is that first number, plus or minus a, comma k. Well, we figured out our h was 2, so we're going to have 2 plus or minus a, and then we're going to have our k value, which we also figured to be 2. I'll just write that in now. So 2 plus or minus a, comma 2. Then now we just have to figure out that a value. Well, we know that a squared is always under the first term, so we know that a squared equals 4, square root of 4 is 2, so a equals 2. So now we're left with the vertices as 2 plus or minus 2, comma 2. And let me write that these are our vertices. So I'll draw those in. If we add 2, it'll be 2 plus 2, which is 4, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2. That's one of our vertices. And then we know, since it's x first and it's positive, we're going to be going this way and this way. And then our other vertice is going to be 2 minus 2, which is 0, 2. It's going to be like this. Then we're going to be opening this way and this way. And then so now I know my foci are going to be inside of both these graphs, like here and here somewhere. So let's figure out what those are. To do that, we need our c value, because as we can look at our formula here, it's h plus or minus c, comma k. And we know c squared equals a squared plus b squared. And then we have a squared is 4. B squared is always what's under the second term, which is 5 in this case, equals c squared. So c equals the square root of 9. So c equals 3. So then we have our c value. So now we can do our foci, which is going to be 2, because that's h, plus or minus c, which is the 3 now. So it'll be 2 plus or minus 3, and then y will stay the same, just constant at 2. So then our two foci, not foci, my bad, will be the point 5, 2 if we add the 3. And then the other one will be negative 1, 2 if we subtract the 3. So then we'll have one there, saying that's negative 1. Then one here, saying that's 5. So now we've got our important points. The last thing we need to do is asymptotes. Asymptotes can be often the hardest things to remember, just because the differences are very subtle between the two. It's b over a and then a over b, and there's really just no hint to really make it easy to remember. So just for x, we're doing b over a, so it'll be plus or minus, so y equals plus or minus b over a times x. So y equals, well, the b is the square root of 5, because b squared equals 5. So b equals square root of 5. And remember, plus or minus. And then a squared is 4, so a is 2 times x. So those are our two asymptotes. So they'll be going something like this. And remember, the asymptotes will always meet in the middle. So they'll always touch the center point, which in this case was 2, 2. So that's the first one. We figured out our foci, our vertices, and our asymptotes, and we've got a good graph going. So now we'll go through one more, and I hope you can pause the video and try this one out before we work on it. So again, first things I do is find HK. And be careful here, because H is not necessarily whatever one comes first just because it was last time. It's whatever one goes with the X. And see how in X we don't have anything, so that means H is 0. Then K, it's subtracting 3, so it's going to be 3. Because remember, it's Y minus K. So K is 3, so we have our vertex, or center, at 0, 3. And that will not actually be a point on the graph, that's just a point for reference. And then now, I notice that, well, y squared is first, so I know it's going to be going up and down. So I just like to know that before I start really graphing it out, so I can understand that I'm going to be working with these formulas this time, not the other ones. So we're going to have the vertice at h, and then k plus or minus a. So h, and then k plus or minus a, because we're going to have the x is going to stay at 0, and we're just going to be working up and down. And a, well, if 16 is a squared equals 16, well, we know the square root of 16 is 4, so a equals 4. And then so now we can find our vertices. We've got h, which we figured out to be 0. Then we've got k, which was 3. So 3 plus or minus 4. So our one vertice will be at 0, 7 if we add it. Then another one will be at 0, negative 1 if we subtract it. So those are our vertices. We can graph them in now. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's one. And then negative 1 is the other. So now we know, and now we can actually draw like the general shape of the graph. We know it's going to be going up, and then we know it's going to be going down. So now we know where the foci need to be. They need to be inside the graph, so they're going to be over here and over here somewhere. And we can figure out the foci by doing, well, we know it's going to be h plus or minus k plus, not h plus or minus k. It'll be hk plus or minus c. And then again, we use the same formula we used last time, where c squared equals a squared plus b squared. And this one, we have our a squared right there, we have our b squared right there. So it's c squared equals 16 plus 25 plus 9. I was already doing the next math. C squared equals 25. So c equals 5. So then we can have our two foci will be h, which was 0, and then we'll have k, which was 3 plus or minus 5. So then we can solve that, and our 2 points will be, well, 0, and then 3 plus 5 is 8, then 0, and 3 minus 5 is negative 2. That's our foci. So let's draw those points in. That's 0, 8, 0, negative 2. So now we have all those aspects of the graph, and the last thing we need to do, of course, is asymptotes. And remember that in this one, we got to look back at our formula. It's not going to be b over a, it's actually going to be a over b. So just make sure you can memorize those and look back at the formula sheet if you need to. So asymptotes, it's going to be a over b. Well, y equals plus or minus a over b times x. So then, well, a was 4. So y equals plus or minus 4 over b, which was 3, all multiplied by x. And then we know, well, they're going to meet in the middle right here, and they're just going to approach the ends. So we can just give our best guess on the asymptotes. But as long as you have what they should be, and you have the vertices and foci, you're well on your way. I hope you enjoyed this video, and please comment if you want me to make more, subscribe, and ask me some questions. Thanks for watching.